Hello. This is Gary Tabach with us. He is retired United States Navy captain. It's a pleasure to have you here today. And my first question is about victory plan. President Zelensky revealed recently his 5 points victory plan. Have you seen it? And I want to quickly remind what these points are. So the first point is to invite Ukraine to NATO now. The second is defense, in particular, transferring combat operation to the Russian territory. The third is deterrence, to place a complex non-nuclear strategic deterrence package on our land. The fourth is the extraction of valuable resources. And the fifth is the use of Ukrainian combat experience to strengthen NATO after the war ends. So what do you think about this plan?
Hello, Novyny.LIVE. Hello, Maria. It's very nice of you to start a program in English, so our English-speaking audience will know what's going on in Ukraine from Ukrainians. It's very good. It's very good. Although I'm not sure. I think it's a plan. It's more of a wish list. It's more of a things that are necessary for Ukraine to have in order to execute some sort of a plan. In reality, and again, maybe I'm speaking from a military point of view, you do not open up your plan to fight the enemy, because even sometimes to your allies, for example, today Israel is not informing our administration of their plans to fight their enemy, because sometimes it leaks. Sometimes they give it away, and you keep your plans are very, very close to yourself. So it's more of a very good wish list that Ukraine needs, or it is necessary for Ukraine to execute a successful plan in this war. So I think it is correct that the plan itself is not announced. And that is why it's very surprising, because everybody demands that President Trump, or candidate for President Trump for presidency of the United States, former President Trump, tells his plan, and he's keeping it to himself. He says, "I have a plan, but I'm not going to tell you what the plan is, because otherwise you'll know I don't open up my cards." The thing is, plans are not something that's solid. It is not something that you have and you can't change it. Plan is a very liquidish thing that we have in the United States, such things as the Murphy Law. You have a plan, but then it changes. So by the time President Trump, if he becomes a president, or if Kamala Harris becomes a president, the situation in Ukraine could change drastically. War is a very unpredictable thing. So if it changes drastically, then you have to change the plan. What I'm trying to say, there is no one set of plans. You should have different contingencies. You have a plan A, plan B, plan C. If they do this, we do that. If they do this, they do that. Most of our Pentagon in the United States, most of the people there sit there and they come up with different types of plans. If Iran attacks us, what do we do? If our ambassador is taken hostage in Benghazi, what do we do? What are our plans? And those plans, but you don't open those plans up. Usually, they're very secretive.
Okay, I get it. I get your point totally. And my next question is about that Zelensky talks about ending the war by 2025. And in your interviews, you say that this will only happen if Trump becomes a next president of the United States. Why do you think so?
Well, because if you don't see that, to start with, this war should not have never happened. We should have known, and we should have prevented this war, just like in Israel. And the reason those wars happen is because we had a very weak, very corrupt government in the United States, and the European Union as well. So European countries followed us because we're still leaders in this world, the United States. And because of our actions or non-actions of our government, this war happened. So under President Trump, wars were actually finishing up. All the dictators sat very quietly. And President Trump was very tough on them. He had a control over them, over North Korea, over Iran. cutting all the aid to Iran, putting sanctions on Iran, very strong, putting sanctions on Russia over Crimea, keeping low oil prices, and that's what he's saying. The first thing he's going to do is drop prices of oil. He's already talking to Saudi Arabia, to Arab Emirates, and other countries, oil-producing countries. He, in his speech in Pennsylvania, which is a key state in this election, he said three enemies. He named three enemies: Russia, number one, China, and North Korea. So he's going to be tough. He's saying he's going to be tough. And he said that he was going to end this war. A lot of times people criticize him, saying that he's saying things that don't happen. But he said that he was going to make peace between Arabs and Israel. And he did that. He said he was going to move our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And he did that. Everybody kept saying it's going to be a war. But on the contrary, peace broke out. The North Koreans, he said that they were going to stop testing their nuclear weapons and their ballistic missiles. And they did. More than that, he said he was going to return the remains of our warriors that got killed in the Korean War. And no other president. Everybody kept saying he's making this stuff up. So why am I saying I can go on and on things he did? He had our fleet in the Black Sea. He had our strategic bombers flying over Ukraine. He gave lethal weapons, including javelins and stingers and sniper rifles, to Ukraine, which were sanctioned and had a veto and embargo on them put by President Obama and Vice President Biden at the time. So he took a lot of those aggressive actions in the past. So why do I think so? On the simple thing that I'm basing it on the past experience. I am not a future teller. I don't know how things will be, but basing it on the past performance of President Trump, he will stop the war, as he says. Why do we love him in the United States or trust him in the United States? Because in his previous presidency, he has done everything he promised in his presidential campaign in 2016. Everything he promised, he delivered, except the wall, because there was such deterrence from the Democratic Party and the Democratic Congress that would not allow him to do it, to finish it up. But now they themselves are saying, yeah, we have to do what President Trump started. So purely basing it on the past experience of presidency.
If Trump won the previous presidential elections, would Putin attack Ukraine like in the first place?
I don't think so. Again, I don't think so for many reasons. Because oil prices were very low. Russia did not have the finances. The President Trump warned in his talks with President Putin, saying to him, if you attack Ukraine, I will send those things. I think he meant our nuclear submarines to your shores, and they would be patrolling it up and down day and night. That was his words. Many times he warned, do not start wars while I'm a president. He would put sanctions. He knows how to fight with funds, with budgets, with money. He's a money man. And he's not a politician. So after certain actions that he took, a lot of people took him seriously. If you don't remember, he was also the one that said that he was not going to meet with President Putin at one of the summits, I believe it was in Geneva, if he did not release Ukrainian sailors that they took hostage. And they released them the very next day without any demands. And President Trump met with President Putin at the time for 5 minutes or so, patted him on the shoulder and said, good guy. And after that, the entire Ukrainian media saying, oh, he's friends with Putin. He called Putin a good guy, never mentioning why he did that, taking it completely out of context, which I thought was very, very unfair on the part of the Ukrainians.
And how, in your opinion, exactly can Trump end this war? Because there are fears that this could happen against Ukraine's interests, for example, by giving up occupied territories to Russia.
Well, the war is against Ukrainian interests to begin with.
That's right.
The ones that are suffering the most from this war are Ukrainians. There are no victory in war. There are only survivors in a war. So I believe that after the meeting with President Zelensky, both President Zelensky and President Trump said that they're going to end the war in a just way. What do they mean by a just way? I'm not sure. Definitely, Ukrainians will pay the huge price and probably will have to pay some other price to stop the war. It's not going to be easy. It isn't. It isn't a simple thing. Everyone is not going to be happy with it in Ukraine. I mean, right, in the West. But it has to be checked with reality. I think from the Israeli experience, we've learned that the peace for land does not work. Israelis have been trying it for 70 years, giving land for peace, and it doesn't work. It makes things worse. And now I think Israelis have learned the lesson. This is where they're not disclosing their plans and continue to do what's beneficial for Israel and for the rest of us. Maybe there is also other players in it, such as Iran, such as China, and I'm sure the generals, the politicians, the diplomats that work with President Trump, that work with President Zelensky, do have a plan and do have a plan to finish the war in a just way. And that is why it is very, very important that President Zelensky met with President Trump, even though the Democratic Party tried to sabotage their meeting, and not long, but that's in the past. That's gone. They have met. They spoke, eye to eye, without listening to their advisors. Some of the advisors maybe are not very good ones, and we should take a lesson from it. And once they heard from each other what the needs are and what is possible to do, not a fantasy land, they came to an agreement that there could be a just way to end the war. How is it going to be done? Again, neither President Trump nor President Zelensky have told me what the plan is. So I cannot share that plan with you. But even if they did, I would not have told you. Because that should be a surprise for Vladimir Putin. And I think he realizes that. He realizes this is why the attack on Ukraine, the bombardment of Ukraine has intensified.
And why do you think that Kamala Harris is such a bad option for Ukraine, specifically?
Because, again, only in the past experience, under President Trump, there was no war. There was no war anywhere. We were ending up wars everywhere. Under Vice President Kamala Harris, she says she will continue the politics of Biden. She will continue that strategy. So there has been several betrayals while she's on her watch. She's still a vice president. And she says, they've asked her on several programs, several interviews, says, what would you do different than what has been done by President Biden? And she says, not really, can't think of anything. So she's not even prepared. So what should we expect? We should expect the same thing. We should expect that Ukraine is not going to get weapons. Ukraine, whatever you call that plan of President Zelensky, you're not going to get weapons. You're not going to get more budget. The United States still holds, or it has expired, almost $8 billion that was supposed to go to Ukraine and not given to Ukraine. You're not going to get a permission to fire long-range missiles on the Russian territory to destroy their military capabilities. So you're pretty much going to have the same. What you're going to have is war by attrition. War by attrition, Ukraine will lose. You do not have the resources as financial resources, fighting ability resources, manpower resources. Russia has more of it by several folds. So the war by attrition is not winnable by Ukraine, even though I must say Ukraine fights in a very asymmetrical warfare with your GUR or your military intelligence. Your special forces are doing an outstanding job. But that's not enough. You need international help. You need to be part of NATO. You need to have coalitions that's seriously helping you, not just standing by watching and saying, "Oh, great job, good job, keep fighting."
So basically, with the Kamala's policy, it will be like, if nothing changes, nothing changes, like it said.
If we continue to do the same thing, we should expect to get the same
results. Right. And Speaker Johnson recently said that he no longer wants to give money to Ukraine. Why he said that?
I don't believe he said that. I have not heard that. I've tried to search it. What it is,
so you think it's a fake, right?
Well, there are many fakes. Right now, we had a parade in the United States for Trump. You know, I live in Miami. We had in Florida a boat parade with Trump, and there were saboteurs that came in with the Nazi flags and Trumps and a pillow man that's famous in the United States, and throwing ziggies and trying to say that Nazis are for Trump. And eventually, the Trump supporters pushed them out because they joined the parade, you know, from the side. They weren't part of it. And eventually the police arrested the owner of the boat. And you could see that the owner of the boat is an old Nazi freak that's been handing out Nazi flags before. And he's not a Trump supporter as he claims to be. So this kind of sabotages are expected. And as always, in the United States, in Europe, but particularly in Ukraine, there's so many fakes. They're basically a fake every day against the Republican Party, against Trump. It almost gives a feeling to many people in the United States that in Ukraine, and people approach me all the time, they're saying, why are they fighting Trump? He helped them so much. Why are they not fighting Putin? Putin is their enemy, not Trump. Trump is a friend of Ukraine. Me, who personally spends half of the time in Ukraine, I clearly understand that the Ukrainian people are not that way. So there's something wrong with the Ukrainian diplomacy. There's something majorly wrong with the Ukrainian information system, with the Ukrainian media, mass media, where only their former Russians fill that media, former communists, former KGB agents that speak freely, and they all speak of the same thing, that Trump is the enemy of Ukraine. And now Mike Johnson, Speaker of our House, who actually fought for Ukraine very hard, and many times he stated that we are not going to leave Ukraine alone. We're going to be engaged. We're going to help Ukraine. What many of them, including Speaker of the House, including the candidate for vice presidency, J.D. Vance, and President Trump, saying pretty much the same thing, saying throwing money at Ukraine and not seeing a result, it's only killing Ukrainians. It's suffocating, killing Ukrainians slowly. What is the result? What is the plan? And the plan should not be demanded from President Trump. The plan should be, if you want a plan, should be demanded from Kamala Harris as a vice president, from the president of the United States, Joe Biden, who actually now did not even go to Rammstein 25, ignored that one, saying that he has to stay in the United States because of the hurricane season. We have a hurricane season every year here. It's like in Moscow. Oh my God, in January there is snow in Moscow. Yes, in November, October, and November it's a hurricane season in Florida and in the south of the United States. It's every year. He could have sent Kamala Harris as a vice president to Rammstein. Could have sent the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State Department, anybody, but they ignored it. So what we're saying is there is no plan, or Johnson, Vance, Trump saying, what is your plan? Giving money is not what Ukraine needs. Giving weapons That's what Ukraine needs. Having a plan how to beat Russia. Bring a real sanctions against Russia, not those sanctions that are now working for Russia. Again, those sanctions were created by the former Russians who used to work for Putin. So this is in the United States, we're very much a lot of times questioned why those fakes come up in Ukraine and they stay with them. They believe them. And it's again, I blame media. I blame mass media, Ukrainian mass media. Again, here's an example. Just 2 days ago, there was a fake with the Nazis for Trump in the United States that was put out in a couple of hours, and that's it. It never took off. But guess where I found that it was happening from? All the Ukrainians start sending me those pictures. Oh, you have Nazis for Trump. That's unfortunately we tend to fool. We tend to be fooled very often. We tend to go for those things. So I do not believe that. I did not see, nor will I ever believe that Mike Johnson would say such thing, because it's a stupid thing to say. Look, he's not stupid. He's very smart and very brave man. He worked very, very hard to pass the law for which you call $61 billion for Ukraine, which was actually $8 billion, but Ukraine never got it. So you can't blame the Republicans or Mike Johnson stopped it. It was voted in, and the White House again didn't give it. All you received is $2.3 billion, I believe, million out of $8 billion that you were supposed to get. And even that money is for the future production of military equipment. You may get it in 5 years. But unfortunately, you never hear that in Ukrainian media, mass media. So I think that anybody who has half a brain, whether Democrats, Republicans, it's bipartisan, realize that Ukraine cannot lose this war. If Ukraine loses this war, it's not Ukraine. All of us lose that war. All of us lose to Putin, to a dictator. The West, the free world, loses it. It's like to Hitler during World War II. We cannot lose this war, nor Israelis can lose the war to terrorists, because we all will lose. We will all pay a huge price for it. So that was said many times by J.D. Vance. That has been said many times by Mike Johnson, by President Trump. Unfortunately, for some reason, it's not being aired in Ukraine, and I don't know why. But what they have always said, they always said victory for Ukraine, victory for Ukraine. The Biden administration, including Kamala Harris, I believe said it only twice, and only recently they used the word victory. Usually they use independence, freedom, but not a victory.
I also wanted to ask you one thing, that United States constantly tells Israel to negotiate with terrorists, not to escalate the situation, but it still sends its troops to help them. So could the situation be the same with Ukraine? Is your government actually doing more than it says it is?
Well, with Israel, again, I think nothing works perfectly. Yes, there's always Israel under a huge pressure to negotiate, to give up land for peace, to sign another agreement. That's been going on for 70 years. The conflict of Russia with attacking Russia's attack on Ukraine is a recent. I mean, historically, is maybe the last 10 years. It's been going on. With Israel, it's 80 years. And Israel has a certain position with the United States and with NATO that Ukraine doesn't. It's considered, and it's a law, it's considered to be a close ally of NATO and the United States, which status that Ukraine should get and should have gotten it. All it is one signature of a president. But President Biden said to take that off the table right away. That was first day in office, he said that. So I also believe that this is the status that Ukraine will get if President Trump becomes a president, because he has mentioned that several times. Therefore, even though there is a huge animosity between, even personal animosity between President Obama, President Biden, and Prime Minister Netanyahu, the status of Israel does not change. So it is our obligation, it is our law to protect Israel. It is voted in Congress. It is not the same with Ukraine. Ukraine does not have the same status. Hopefully, it will eventually, and this is what we should work for. So, even though the president and his administration, again, I think that Ukrainians have to understand there is a White House, there is a White House administration, a president, but then there is an American people. It's Congress. So the White House can only do so much against the people or for the people. So they can veto or they can act on it, but there are certain things they cannot do. Also, as you understand, right now it's an election year. Historically, I'm trying to squeeze everything into very short sentences. Historically, the Jewish population of Ukraine, of the United States, maybe 80% of Jewish people, they're Democrats. And if the Democrats are now not going to assist Israel, they're going to change their vote. Also, it's not only Jewish people. We have very large and very strong lobbying from the Christian evangelists. Actually, the best friends of Israel are evangelistic Christians of the United States. And it is a very, very large population of very good people, very deeply religious people. And they will not vote Democrat, even though most of them are not Democrats anyway. And they would put their weight behind Israel. But all those protests that you see in the United States on campuses, pro-Palestine, pro-Hamas, pro-Hezbollah on the university campuses, they are also
voting for Democrats.
They vote for Democrats. That's their elective base. So they have to please both sides. So they're trying verbally say, no, Israel should negotiate, Israel should stop, they should de-escalate, there should be proportional response. What's proportional response? Beyond me, I don't understand what Israelis are supposed to kill 1,500 children, Arab children, and take 250 hostage. What's a proportional response? I mean, my grandfather fought at Stalingrad. I don't think it was a proportional response. Nobody ever talked about proportional response then. So that way they kind of satisfy these idiots who march around and cause pogroms in the Jewish neighborhoods and stores and attacking people on the streets of New York. And trying, but quietly give weapons to Israel, realizing Israel cannot lose this war. We need to fight these terrorists, Iran, sooner or later. So let Israel do all the dirty job. We will criticize them, but we'll give them weapons. With Ukraine, it's a different situation, unfortunately. With Ukraine, for some reason, and you tell me why, there are no protests on the streets of the United States. There are no protests in front of the Russian embassy. Not even one Ukrainian flag on our campuses saying, free Ukraine, get out of Russia, get out of Ukraine. None. Quiet. Why? Why is it so much for terrorists?
I also question that. It's strange.
Against the democratic country that has given so much to free world, including in science and medicine, to kill this democratic country. And we're for the terrorists, their protests for it. Here is a dictatorship attacks a country that wants to be democratic, that wants to be part of the society, modern society, and we're not protesting against the dictatorship. So that is a mystery to me. Why is this happening? Although I think it's not a mystery to many smart people. There's a lot of money involved, and there are a lot of people who has interest in it. So I think with President Trump versus President Biden or versus Vice President Kamala Harris, he comes in strong and he says, no, we're on the side of Ukraine, we're on the side of Israel. We're against terrorists, we're against Nazis, we're against dictators. I'm going to put Russia as the enemy, China, North Korea, Iran, and so forth. But the countries that strive to be democratic, the countries that strive to share our values, our American values, they're our allies, and we're supposed to help them. We cannot allow them to lose. And there's also a moral side to it. We shouldn't stand by and watch innocent people get killed. We shouldn't stand by and watch Ukraine being destroyed when children hospitals, when churches, when living quarters are being wiped off the face of the earth by the Russians. That is wrong for the free world, for people who do not take lightly words like freedom and liberty and justice for all. We should be engaged in it and not stand by and say, well, we express concern over it.
And let's go back to the elections. I heard one conspiracy theory, I don't know how you feel about conspiracy theories, that before the previous US elections, there was a lot of hype about Epstein Island, and the names of politicians who visited it were dropped, including Trump, if I'm not mistaken. Now, before this election, the P. Diddy scandal is flaring up again. So people on social media say that this may be to discredit politicians before the elections and to distract attention. What do you think about it? Because it's a strange coincidence of these two scandals.
Well, they're horrible scandals. They're the Mr. Epstein scandal of the island and Didi, where really there were minors involved. You know, in a sense, adults can do in their bedroom whatever they want to do if they're consenting to. But if there are children involved, if there is white slavery or exploitation of women that don't want to do it, it's a huge crime. It's terrible. It should be punished. It should be investigated. The thing is, there is a list of people who were involved in it. There is an interview given by Elon Musk to Tucker Carlson, where he is explaining and he's saying that in both of those incidents, there are many celebrities, many politicians, many influential people, including in the media, were involved in those crimes. Those are crimes. Those are very, very serious crimes. I wouldn't want anybody, my family members, to be victims of such crimes. And he's saying what the Democrats are afraid, why do they, and many Republicans too, do not want President Trump to win? Yeah, they're saying he could be in there, but he's the one that's saying it. Once he's a president, he will open up the list. He will open up the names. We will know the names of the people. They're saying that there is Prince Andrew, I believe, there. They think that the Clinton family is involved there. They believe that there is Gates in it, Hoffman. That's why those people give billions of dollars to the Democratic Party. They're doing everything possible to get rid of Trump. Look, they've tried to destroy Trump financially, to bankrupt him. They tried to put him to prison. And now, actually, the judges, the appeal court is saying maybe we should extract legal licenses from some of the lawyers who are suing Trump, because it's clearly they're trying to influence the elections. So it's not the Russians and not the Chinese. It's our own system and our media that is trying to cheat on those elections. For instance, like 60 Minutes cut out and changed things around when they were interviewing Kamala Harris, really presenting to us a different person, not the one that was speaking there, but actually adjusting and pasting, gluing what she was saying. I want to know what the person I'm going to be voting for, what they're saying. That's what it's for. So constantly playing up to one candidate and trying to drown the other one, that's trying to influence the elections, not the Russians and the Chinese. So they're saying that he's saying that he will open up the list. Of course, as soon as he said that he's going to open up the list of these people, they're saying he's part. Of course, he's on that list. Look, if your criminal is on some sort of a list, I don't think that criminal wants that list to be public. So Trump is saying he will make public that. He will also make public the documents that have been secret for, 60 some years on Kennedy assassination.
And my last question will be about Israel, because I'm really invested in the situation there, because I have my family there in the north part. So how do you see the solution of Israeli conflict in general for the future? Because now there are a lot of things going on and nobody knows how it will end up.
Well, I hope your family is safe. I do too. Family there. I presume that half of Ukraine has a family there, but I think that it's not a conflict that Israel has. It's a conflict of ideas. It's a conflict of beliefs. It's a conflict between darkness and light. It's a conflict between good and bad. It is a conflict that, in my opinion, is not that different than the conflict that's going on in Ukraine. A bad entity wants to destroy a good entity. And so it is our problem. It's all of our problems. So how will it end? It will end only if the rest of the civilized world will take part in it. If the rest of the civilized world will not go around Africa coast, but actually get rid of and destroy terrorists that are blocking and holding us hostage for almost 2 years by blocking Suez Canal and the Red Sea, and, that are supplied with weapons from Russia and Iran. That is when we all stop waiting for Israelis and the Ukrainians to resolve the problems that we created for ourselves, but by financing terrorist organizations in Iran, again, this Biden administration that lifted sanctions from them. It is a Biden administration that gave them $6 billion and then $10 billion. And all of a sudden they have ballistic missiles and they tested the nuclear weapon, Iran. So once we stop and say, okay, this is the enemy and we have to fight them, not please them. We've tried to do that with Hitler, we've tried to do it many times. With Stalin, that does not help. We have to get together and destroy our enemy, not wait until the dirty job is done by Israel and then we can criticize them for not being, doing it with white gloves or with the precision. So until we realize that the war will continue there and eventually Israel will exhaust itself. And that we have to realize. The same thing with Ukraine. Until we realize that Ukraine is fighting a terrorist war, and Ukraine is much smaller, and expecting that Ukrainians will do the job for us, eventually Ukraine will exhaust itself as well. So until it is the society, world society, civilized world society, will take action, be brave enough, and choose strong leaders in Europe, in the United States, and those strong leaders will be able to make not popular decisions. Until then, we will suffer.
Thank you very much. I would like to talk to you more, but we now have to finish, yes. Thank you very much for this interview. It was really interesting. I get all of your points. Thank you.